right, welcome to another Movement Monday. We are not recording this on a Monday, but it worked out for both Will and I's schedule, so this is when we're recording. Today we have a really special guest. He is a knowledge guru about the foot and its function, and we're just going to be talking through his journey from being in pain to moving pain-free, really. And
Yeah.
I just do want to point out we are recording this on a live family table call. So if you're not part of the Move Pain Free family, feel free to click the link in the description below this, and you will be able to join it right there for free and get a notification anytime we do this. So after all that, Will, explain yourself to me, man. Tell me
Cool.
where you've been and where you are.
Yeah, so I appreciate you having me, man. Yeah, my name's Will. Me and Mitchell met through Twitter because we actually have pretty similar little businesses that we run, and they stemmed from similar places. So he covers back pain, I tend to cover foot pain. And the reason why is because about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I like hurt my feet pretty badly, and just like many people that I talk to now, couldn't find any kind of resolution for it. So it was plantar fasciitis, and it like crippled me for about 2 years. I was out of sports, I was out of working out, I was like hobbling around, struggling. And it wasn't until I stumbled upon, through much research, barefoot shoes, among other things. But that was kind of the first step into my actual recovery, where I actually started to feel better. And I couldn't believe it because this was like a brand new world to me. But yeah, it brought me to where I am today. And now I am quite passionate about the feet and foot pain because I just see how desperate the need is. People needing answers. So that's a bit about me.
Yeah, and we'll dive into the rest here in a little bit, but I do want to just reiterate barefoot shoes can be a world changer for a
Yeah.
lot of people, right? Similar story to Will here. I struggled with back pain for a long, long time. Found barefoot shoes as something to add to my life to just bring my body back to a more natural function. So if you're watching this and you're struggling with some sort of joint pain, a switch to barefoot shoes could be a good option. And what we're talking about tonight is how to safely transition from your big, padded, bulky shoes that could be adding to problems and just safely transition to barefoot shoes of any brand. We'll talk about a few, I'm sure, that we've tried. And, um, but Will, if you want to just, I don't know, get the shovel in the dirt here for
Oh,
this
yeah.
conversation, um, where should we start with switching?
Yeah, man. So we'll talk a little bit about transitioning because you're listening to someone who did not transition well. I was so at the time for a solution because, like I said, I could barely walk. I was wearing Birkenstock sandals just because of that really strong arch support that is built into them. I needed that support so badly because without it, my heel was just like throbbing. So once I ditched those, I got into Zero Shoes, one of the biggest brands that me and Mitchell really like. Um, and I finally felt like I could actually walk like several blocks without much pain. And I was what is going on here? This is kind of like mysterious. Because logically you think the shoe's thinner. So like if my heel hurts, how is a thin shoe allowing me to get out of pain? And what I didn't realize at the time was the wide toe box. The toe box allowing your toes to go from this in a regular shoe to splaying more outward. That was the difference maker. So yeah, what I kind of came to realize though was you can't transition into these too quickly because from there, of course, I'm excited. I'm like, oh my God, like I might be able to work out again finally. So I start kind of running, jogging and stuff in them and realize like I'm overdoing it. And so I pull back. I didn't injure myself, luckily. So I pull back. And so a couple of things that I now tell people is like, just start with barefoot shoes. Just start real nice and easy. Start wearing them around your house, break them in, wear them on like errands, getting groceries, just very low impact activities. I definitely would not tell you to start running or start like a sport in them or like jumping. Anything high impact, hold off on that for maybe several weeks or a couple months. Get a lot of walking and just like housework or errand work done in them first. See how you feel. It'll take a little bit of acclimatizing to them.
Yeah. And I also have a horror story of just straight cold turkey switching to undies shoes, right?
Yep.
And I just started working out, started running, and my I'm pretty sure I bruised my fifth metatarsal like badly on both feet, like this outside bone. If you're watching this on YouTube, this outside bone of your foot, and it really it hampered my gains of being able to become a barefoot walker. So yeah, same idea. I honestly, I would even say maybe don't even wear them all the time until it's your second pair of shoes, your second pair that you've worn out. Like it is something that your feet need to get used to, but it's not an insurmountable goal to switch over. So yeah,
Right.
I mean, kind of from there, I want to talk about why barefoot shoes actually help us.
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of people hear like the marketing slogans and like, hey, this shoe will help your back right now. But I think a lot of people do want to know why. So I'm sure you have ideas on this. Why do barefoot shoes even help?
Yeah, so there's actually, there can be at least, I'll say, quite a bit of difference between conventional shoes, like Nikes, Asics, Hokas, whatever, and barefoot shoes. There can be quite a big difference, a lot of different features. So I want to say that the biggest differences would be number one, that wider toe box. This is one that I talk about quite a bit with my audience. And the reason why is because, at least for foot pain specifically, it is such a difference maker to get those toes spread out again. Because what's happening is it's allowing better blood flow to enter the foot, believe it or not. Just that positioning of the toe so that it's in line with the metatarsal bones, which are kind of just those thin, wiry bones that you see on the top of your feet. The more your toes line up with those, the less pain you should be in, hypothetically. And yeah, so the wide toe box is a very big deal. I'm sure people have heard about the heel elevation as well. A lot of shoes have a heel which is actually raised above where the toes are or above where the ball of the foot is. So just another feature it's very unnatural and it's actually shortening muscles that are on the back of your leg. It's destabilizing your ankle, making you more prone to injury or just general tightness. Um, Lots of different things like that. Uh, they're typically more lightweight too, barefoot shoes, which is just, in my opinion, that's a feature that everyone wants, especially like an athlete, runner. Um, but yeah, thin, flexible sole,
Yeah,
that's another feature that big difference maker.
yeah. The list really goes on, right?
Yeah, yeah, there's quite a bit to say.
And yeah, a few of those were points that I really don't even think about, like the
Mhm.
blood flow part. If your foot has more space in it, your blood's going to be able to flow more. And
Yeah.
um, these shoes are pinching our foot together. And I I actually like to talk about this on how we think about the foot as a tri arch, right? So
Mm.
it's three arches that when we are able to lock all three of them into place, now our foot becomes this stable platform for our body to move around. And what shoes do and make you feel secure in is they cramp your feet together and they kind of artificially lock those arches.
Yeah.
And but then you get stuck there and your foot can't relax again. So that's a really good point with the lack of blood flow and lack of space for your foot to relax and um, find its natural locking tension is what we call it. That natural locking of the foot arches. So yeah, a lot of good points. And like we were just saying, these are all the benefits of the barefoot shoe,
Mhm.
but those are all the detriments of the normal conventional padded sole, right? Because I'll talk about the tri-arch here. The the padded sole of your shoe will actually push up against your arch. And if you know anything about how arches work, they're a half circle with a keystone in the middle. And if you press down on the keystone, it makes the arch very rigid. But if you press up on the keystone, the arch will collapse. And that's what the shoe is doing. So, what else can you think of? Detriments of conventional shoes.
Yeah, detriments would be, and you know what? I have like shoes here just because I'm like that big of a nerd with them,
Let's
just
go.
to demonstrate. But like with our shoes, we're so used to wearing shoes that actually have like this rocker element to them. So they're almost like a ramp in a way. Like especially with running shoes, people who wear Hokas, I always like I look at them and I just can't believe like people call those so comfortable because I'm like you are just like on this ramp where the heel is lifted, but actually more detrimentally, I'd say the toes are lifted too. This is another feature that will kind of like shorten the muscles on the top of the foot and on the front of the lower leg, so around the shins. And this is just like an unnatural way to propel you forward. So they actually use it in, especially in running, as like a marketing type of thing. Like it's helping propel you forward. But the funny thing is that's not how we propel ourselves. We use the arch to gather strength from the ground to help propel us forward. And we toe off, we push off. But these shoes are kind of designed to have you just on like a rocker. So you're not really using your foot properly. And just to expand on, you were just talking about the arch, Mitch. That's such a good point because the way they design shoes with, arch support within them, it's so backwards to the way that an arch gains strength. Because an arch is strong when there's pressure coming from above it, not below it. So if you have pressure coming from under, you've actually weakened the arch. You've destabilized it. So these shoes that are advertised to us very heavily to be like healthy, they're going to help you, PR in your race or whatever. They're not making your feet strong. And for a lot of people I talk to, they're putting people in pain and injuring them because the arch is becoming weak. It's flattening out. A lot of people come to me and say like, "Oh, but I have flat feet." And I'm like, "You have weak feet. That's your arch falling is kind of just a symptom of your foot being weak. If you started training your foot to become strong again, you'd have an arch again."
Mm.
I mean, so that's a little bit more about them.
Yeah, and I've kind of started telling people who have flat feet that a flat foot is like a small bicep, right? That
Mhm.
it's a symptom, like you
Yep.
just said. Uh, these are things that we can train either size or tension in, because a flat foot is just a non-tension foot. There's literally no tension keeping the arch in place, and that's really what that comes down to. I like that you tell them that right away, because I know there are professionals in the industry who, oh, you have flat feet, oh, you actually need arch support, and it's uh,
Right.
it's a never-ending cycle. But they'll keep buying arch support, I suppose, and
Right.
they'll keep
Yeah.
paying to the medical system, maybe. So,
Right. Yeah, and it's kind of a shame because it keeps people who don't know any better in this like loop of consumption where you just have to keep buying orthotics, you have to keep buying structured footwear, you have to keep buying foot braces and splints and whatnot. And the opposite is the answer. You need less support. You actually need to make your foot function. Another thing that I've heard before, and I really liked how it was said, was you wouldn't wear an oven mitt on your hand and live that way. Like, why would we cover our hands so that our fingers can't spread? If you lived your life in oven mitts, you'd have the weakest hands ever. And then if you tried to actually use grip strength, you'd have nothing there. And then so, what would you have? A collapsed hand? No, you just have a weak hand. You don't use it properly. So our foot's actually the same way. The toes are very important for creating strength and creating a strong arch, and that makes a more functional foot.
Will, how about you just tell the future people kind of what you do on a daily basis and how you intake people and fix their problems for them?
Yeah, man. So I mean, um, I guess when people come to me, they tend to ask me questions that are kind of along those lines, like the flat foot one, like, oh, okay, like I hear what you're saying about the shoes, but what if I have flat feet? And so, I just start talking to them about stuff like that. And sometimes there's a little bit of a barrier for people. They don't really want to make a big change. And I do understand that. So, like, even though we're sitting here talking about barefoot shoes and I'm an advocate for them, I can't make you buy them. Like, I definitely recommend that people start thinking about wearing them. But maybe in the meantime, if you're not totally comfortable yet, just wearing things like toe spacers, being barefoot more often, um, just stretching the feet, stretching the toes, things like that are good starts. And then, as far as, sorry, I'm getting away from your question. As far as, like onboarding people, I have a couple courses on like plantar fasciitis they're very simple to take. I have like a free guide too, and that'll get you on my newsletter if you'd like that too, where I just talk about foot pain. I just give you very naturalistic, simple solutions to foot pain. And it sounds like a lot of people, they don't need a whole lot of changing. They just need a couple tweaks to their lifestyle and they're already on a better way. And then for people who are more serious, I do offer coaching as well. So you can definitely hire me and I can get you out of foot pain on a private coaching.
Awesome. Yeah, very cool. And when you kind of delved into that list, what came to mind was a lot of people will go through their whole day without like wiggling their toes
Oh
or
yeah.
like any type of foot exercise. And that's a big thing that I've found is if you want even better blood flow to your feet, like I have chronically cold feet, and what
Mhm.
helps me to get better blood flow is just to move my toes, maybe try to grab some things with my toes throughout the day and just walk around barefoot. And those are like the bare minimum that you can get started doing right now.
Right.
And I have actually a question. So I just saw my buddy last night who I grew up training wrestling with and whatnot, but he has this like spiky mat that he steps on with his feet.
Uh,
And
yep.
I walked around on that for about 2 minutes and my calves were lit up. And have you ever seen one of those? I'm not sure what it's called.
Yeah, actually. So it would probably fall into the category of just like a proprioceptive mat. Like it is something that's made to enable your proprioception of your feet. Kind of like just like a sensory stimulation type of thing. And it's pretty interesting. If the listeners want a company to look into, check out Naboso, Naboso. It's run by a very smart lady named Dr. Emily Splickle. She's a podiatrist, and she basically designs like things like that, mats or shoe insoles and more products that basically they kind of just stimulate the bottom of your foot and they like awaken more muscles in your feet and your lower legs. And they just enable better proprioception within you overall. But yeah, I actually, funny enough, like I have a client at the moment who she seems to have fibromyalgia, where it's just kind of like random pain that she gets in her legs. And the one thing she tells me is that the Naboso mat that I recommended to her, that is like the thing that helps her the most. So, for people listening, if you've got random pain that you don't understand, that might be a start for you. Who knows? I've definitely had a person or two tell me that they really like it.
Yeah. And the reason I brought that up is I cannot stop thinking about that feeling I had when I was walking around on it. It was very interesting. It was right before we went
Yeah.
to work out. So we were doing a lot of like foot-based exercises from our program. Like everything is forefoot loaded, locking tension to the max. Like your foot's got to be right. And dude, walking on that for 2 minutes right before that had my feet ready to go. So
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Even today, I mean, I'm like in the Midwest, just like you're from, and I mean, it was 63 degrees today, believe it or not, in February.
Oh,
So I'm outside barefoot for a little while, and I'm forgetting how sensitive my feet are because they've been covered up for months. So like I'm just in the grass and the ground's still a little hard. So I'm like, oh wow, like that actually feels like a little weird. Like this is it is like a wake up, you know?
yeah. Yeah, it is very interesting. Once you wake your feet up, it's it's almost like too intense right away. Like your
Yeah.
feet are tickling your feet, dude. If someone tickles your feet, you can't handle it. It's too
No,
intense
you
of a
can't.
stimulus. You will never just sit there and let them tickle your feet. Like your feet have a ton of nerves in them, and if you aren't utilizing them to the max, you're missing out on a lot of information intake from your environment, really. Uh,
Sure.
and we talk about that a lot, where your foot is really your first defense against the forces of the outside world. Every time you land, it's you accepting and defeating the outside forces that are trying to act upon you. And
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's your foundation. Like people who have issues with their joints in general, like you and I both do some covering of different forms of joint pain, maybe a little bit more on your end, but it's kind of interesting because on the note of footwear, a lot of the footwear we wear has such a bulky heel on it that it actually encourages us to strike heel first. So people are hitting the ground pretty hard and all the time with a big clunky heel. And they're thinking like, well, it has cushion or like, I can just add more cushion or add an insert. And it's like that's actually not the right answer though for your joints because your joints are taking that impact straight up from your foundation all the way up your body and it affects everything, back, neck, it does get that high. So that's just another interesting thing that the shoes we wear, they actually change the way we even strike the ground, the way we even approach the way our gait is with walking and running.
Yeah, and just to kind of expand on the idea of heel striking, right? When you're walking, your heel's gonna touch the ground first, most likely, but it's more of like taps and you roll to the front of your foot. Uh, and then when you're running, obviously we don't want heel striking, but a lot of people's heels will still touch down. But like
Yeah.
you're saying, the padding on your heel isn't giving you any negative feedback from striking your heel, so your body is not going to learn that that's bad. You need to be the master of your own body and allow it to learn from these things, right? Because your body will feel the heel strike and be like, that's not for me. But if you're wearing big padded shoes, body doesn't feel the heel strike and there's no learning being done. So, and to expand on why a heel strike is an issue, when you land on your heel, there's supposed to be this space between your foot and your shin, okay? Where your foot can behave kind of like a ball and socket. Your ankle will behave like a ball and socket type joint. But when you're heel striking, you're just slamming your shin into your foot and taking away that space. And the key to pain-free movement is to have space in joints for them to move. And when you're taking that space away with the heel strike and among other movement errors that we talk about a lot, you're not setting your body up for a win.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of new to me, so thanks for that. But yeah, I mean staying on the shoes, like we mentioned zero shoes, and I know that you actually talked to their CEO, Steven, yesterday. So that's super cool. I'm sure you're gonna release some stuff on that soon. But before we get to that, what about like other shoes that you like? Do you wear anything other than zero shoes?
Yeah. So let's talk about my shoe sins first. Because there are some things that I let slide, even being as health conscious. But right now, I actually have on Uggs, like Ugg boots,
Yeah.
and they're really wide, to be honest. And I'm pretty sure they're zero drop. They look zero drop, which means they don't have the elevated heel. But I kind of let these slide because they don't cramp my toes at all, and they're super comfy. Um, but like I'll wear Birkenstocks and sandals of that nature as well. And that was actually a question in the chat. What are our thoughts on slides and flip-flops and whatnot? And there's definitely negatives to them, especially like the slides that you have to hold on your foot by lifting your toes up. Like that will it will change how you walk. But if you can make a switch from barefoot shoe for like most things and a slide for like a few things, that would be a positive change off, I think. So other than that, I've tried Vivo. So Vivo
Sure.
barefoot. Those I
Yeah.
had one pair of. I have a pair of Lems for like my dress shoes. Those are nice. They're wide and they're zero drop, but they do have some padding, which I mean, sometimes it's fine. Sometimes it feels
Yeah.
kind of nice.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then let's see, what else have I tried? There is one more, but I can't think of it. But I can't think of it right now. But maybe if you say it, I will remember.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a few popular brands out there, and then there actually are a ton of more niche brands that a lot of people probably don't know about, but I'm sure they're kind of coming up. Yeah, Zero is a huge one for me. Like I said before, Zero is what got me started. And my gosh, was I so thankful like that I finally was out of pain. So I'm very loyal to Zero, and they tend to be my favorite. Another one that I'm liking lately is Lem's shoes. I like wearing those to work because I'm on a hard floor all day. And like you said, Lems has a little bit more padding. So it's like a healthy amount. I think they've got like a 10 to 13 millimeter stack height. So there's a little bit under your foot. And that's good if you're like on your feet all day or you're going to do a ton of walking. It's good to kind of buffer with that. Vivos, I wear those too. I tend to wear them for sports. So funny enough, like my sport is soccer, at least now. Like I play every week, and soccer shoes are just talk about foot coffin. I mean, like your foot is going to the grave wearing soccer shoes. They're so narrow, they're so rigid. They're and not to mention you're getting stepped on anyway. Like you can't even defend yourself. So I actually, crazy as I am, I tend to wear Vivo Barefoot trail shoes as my soccer shoes because they have studs on the bottom. So that is kind of how I've like buffered wearing healthier footwear for like my active life. And another like resource that I can offer people if anyone's interested is I make like sport shoe lists. So I have like a barefoot shoe running list or just like a sport list. So shoes for like basketball, soccer, tennis and whatnot. If anyone's interested in that, you could check out my profiles. But yeah, those are definitely the main ones. I haven't gotten into the niche brands as of yet, but I've seen some very cool ones.
Yeah.
So,
Bringing up soccer cleats because you play soccer, there's a brand called Nature Athletics. Like they share the A
uh,
and the two words share the A in the middle, and they make really wide soccer cleats.
uh,
They look almost like clown shoes. They're so wide. Like they're ridiculously wide, but I want to try them. And it they look like they would be useful for on the field stuff. And I coach football. Um, so maybe I will look into those. Maybe you should look into them too, and we can give a review or something.
I probably should. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like you said, the trail shoes, I wear zero trail shoes. I wear the Mesa Trail for like on turf exercise and whatnot, and they're so grippy. And I have a bunch of hiking boots too. Like barefoot shoes can be things that you use for everything, and I think it's almost like a world you have to step into and see first because you're not going to see them advertised everywhere.
Right.
As much as people like us try to get them out, but they're There's nice options for pretty much anything you want to do.
Yeah, yeah, there really are, man. And not to mention that, like, when you get deeper into this world, you realize that a lot of these brands, they're kind of focused on one to two niches. So Zero, for example, the founder of Zero, Steven, he is a sprinter. Like that is his like sport. So not just running shoes they make, but they actually make shoes that are incredibly lightweight for like sprinting, like high speed. Vivo Barefoot, they tend to make stuff that's more like hiking, kind of like outdoorsy, or it tends to be like for the gym, like lifting, CrossFit. And then Lems, they're kind of more like a I would call them like kicking around or like just a casual hike going through the woods or something, like type of hiking boots. So all these companies, they actually have a little bit different of focuses. So you could either pay attention to stuff like that or just, follow people like me and Mitch who like talk about this consistently. Because I definitely have to wear different shoes for different occasions. Like the Vivo ones, they work for me with soccer because they're not too wide. They're just a little wider. So my foot isn't sliding around a lot in the shoe, like hitting the walls and being uncomfortable, but it's just enough that it's much better than a soccer shoe. And I'm still getting that traction on the bottom where I feel like I'm in a very safe and controlled shoe where I can actually move how I want to move. Because I've definitely had to try several shoes while playing soccer, and most of them did not work. Like they were more hassle than they were worth. So it can be situation dependent.
Yeah. And yeah, I do want to kind of talk about what we both do in our barefoot shoes because I don't do everything in them. Oh, Ultra, that's the other brand. Ultra.
Oh, Ultra, Ultra, good
Yeah.
brand.
Yes, good brand. And yeah, I'll kind of talk about Ultra. They make wide toe box zero drop, but they're padded to different levels. And that's what I wear for running on pavement and like the sidewalk. I don't enjoy running in barefoot shoes. I'm sure I could and it wouldn't kill me, but I like a little bit of padding. So I wear my ultras for running. And then if I'm gonna run on like a trail, something that's dirt, I'll wear my Mesa trails because I can definitely run in the barefoot shoes uh on the trail. So
Yeah.
and go ahead. What do you wear yours for?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of told you about the soccer. That's pretty much what I do. And I play indoor predominantly, so I'm on like fake turf. And those Vivo Barefoot Primus Trail soft grounds, that's what they're called. Those do the trick for me. My like kicking around shoes are my zeros. I like how just flexible and casual and like slip on and off adjustable they are. Trying to think what else. I'm getting back into running because funny enough, I just canceled my gym membership because I want to like work out outside more. And the weather's nice, so I'm just like, I'm gonna be outside. So I've been running a little bit more, and I run in my other pair of Vivo Barefoots. And now maybe this is of interest. I like strongly believe in running on natural ground. This is something that my audience has probably heard me say for several years. When I was in pain, I couldn't walk on like hard ground, like, pavement or just like warehouse type of flooring. That hurt. So what I found myself doing is I walk exclusively on the grass next to the sidewalk. Like I will completely disregard pavement as much as I can, walk in dirt, grass, everything, because that ground is soft, so it's more forgiving. And then it's also a little uneven. So your ankle and the bottom of your foot and your toes are getting more feedback to send to your brain about what kind of terrain that you're on, and you're live adjusting and you're live building strength and mobility. So I'm a very big believer in that. And when you're wearing barefoot shoes, the soles are thinner and they're more flexible. So you're feeling what you're on more so than in a Hoka shoe or Asics or whatever. So I'm a big believer in that. So I run in my Vivo Barefoots, which are pretty thin, but I get to feel like the lumps and the divots in the grass, and I love it. I mean, I kind of crave it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I'm the same way. If I'm gonna run in a barefoot shoe, it's got to be a natural surface.
Yeah.
Um, Otherwise, I can deal with pavement and hard surfaces in the ultras, and I'm really glad I remember that brand because that's a good one for people to know because it's
Yeah.
your transition. I would say you can get a pair of ultras first or a pair of Lems. They're both
Yeah.
padded, wide toe box, zero drop, and then you can get all the way down to the true barefoots with zeros and vivos and any other niche brand you want to look up, and you can get decently cheap pairs on Amazon too that really aren't that bad. I've had a few friends get them. Witten is a brand.
Yeah.
Whitin. And yeah, those as far as I know, I've never had a pair, but they're good shoes. Have you tried a pair of Wittens?
Yeah, yeah. I've had two Wittens. Those are pretty decent. Like for the price, you're getting it's not the best shoe. Like it's never been my favorite, but for $40, I believe it is. I mean, it's perfectly suitable. The toe box is wider than normal footwear is. There's zero drop. They're a little more flexible. Like you're just getting a great entry to the world of barefoot shoes. So I think your little list right there absolutely nailed it. Just like for people listening, start with stuff like Witten or Ultra or Lems, like you said, because these are just going to ease you into the world and they're not going to give you this very harsh feedback where you kind of get that like, oh, like that pullback of like, wow, I just basically injured myself. I don't know what these people are talking about. Like they're telling me this is going to save me from pain, and they basically put me in pain. Well, your body didn't get to where it got overnight. It's been years, years and years that ended up getting you in pain. So just ease in, there's no rush at all. Give your body the time to adjust.
Yeah, because when you think about it, the more work you're gonna make your foot do, is the same as your muscles in the rest of your body. You need to let them recover. So when you're easing in, maybe walking around for 10 minutes, then 20 minutes, then a half hour, just easing in, you're going to allow your body to recover and adapt much better to those shoes. And yeah, I think we've beat the dead horse about these barefoot shoes, but I think it's really good information for people to know because I know a lot of people in my community who switch, they feel great, but you have to do it the right way. So the next thing I want to talk about is if you want guidance on this type of stuff, you know who to talk to. I know I cover this stuff. I know Will covers this stuff. And depending on what you're dealing with right now, and you don't want to use too much of your brain to keep track of all this stuff, you can also talk to us and we'll help you through it. So, well, I'll be sure to actually link all of your free resources below too, just so that people who need the help can get it, and that'll be awesome. So I think we'll start kind of wrapping it up. Well, thanks for coming on to talk, and I learned a lot, and I'm sure anyone who listened did as well. So, do you have any final parting thoughts for us here?
No, I think you about summarized it. I mean, yeah, I kind of emphasize to people just, ease your way in and utilize resources like me and Mitch. Like the way I met Mitch was actually through using his free back pain resource, and it helped me because I had a really stiff lower back, and I started doing his exercise. I forgot what the name of it was, but it was one of your free things, and it helped me. So like we both offer free resources that are going to help you get into the world nice and easy, and they're all naturalistic type of solutions. Like we're trying to put you on a path of actual recovery, not like rebounding and having to recover and like go back to the drawing board. So these are all things that we're trying to implement into your lifestyle safely so that you don't even have to go back to a doctor or whatnot. So yeah, thanks a lot, Mitch, for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, people should just, check out our free stuff. And if you want to dig deeper, hire us to help you with your foot pain or back pain because we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of free stuff, I'm actually coming out with an interactive introduction to movement-based training with all the sort of stuff that we talk about on this podcast and on Twitter every day. So if you're interested in that completely free course, we're going to talk about why lifting-based training is subpar for your movement health. And we're going to talk about how you can just make a simple switch to movement based training to use our feet the correct way, to organize our spine and our hip and our ankle, and just make sure that we can move pain free for a lifetime. So, again, there's a link in the description for that. You can sign up early. But other than that, thank you for watching. And Will, thanks again. And I'm signing off now.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mitch.